Today, I'm talking about 5 reasons that intuitive empaths never create the life of their dreams. Hi, my name is Leah Chantel. Welcome back to my channel, Intuitive Empaths, and today I'm talking about why we don't build our dreams. And it comes down to 5 reasons, and I'm sure there are more, but I'm going to go into these 5 today on why we don't achieve the dream life that we're hoping to create for ourselves. And the answers to this are more subtle than you would think. But overall, the message is that we don't set up that vibration in advance to succeed. We make our lives way overcomplicated, way busy, and we don't really take the time to craft our dreams and schedule them into our lives. And we have so many distractions nowadays that veer us off of that path, that if we don't really have a discipline of putting ourselves back on the path, then we're not going to succeed at creating our dream lives. So here's obstacle number 1 that I want to go into, and that's having a messy home. I'm a really big believer in keeping your home organized. And what I mean by organized is not necessarily no dirt or no mess, like some crazy perfect home like you see in a magazine. I'm not saying it has to be 100% perfect, but you have to have your major items and your major organization systems in place. So if you have papers for a book you're going to write, you need to have a place for those papers so you have access to them and you can see them on a regular basis and get to the information that you need. And maybe electronic notes work better for you than paper notes, but it depends. Some people really connect when they're writing pen to paper because it's more simple, whereas when you're using the electronic devices, it gets more distracting, and I'll get into that a little bit later in my listicle. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the mess. So when you have mess and chaos in your home, you haven't washed your dishes, or you haven't put things away that you were working with, or put them in the right spot, that creates a vibration of distraction because you're distracted by the mess that's around you instead of the project you need to be working on. Now, our homes are constantly evolving, so we're never going to have it 100% perfect. But we should have a space, for example, where we do our meditation and we do our prayers, and that space should be clean, especially. Our workspace should also be clean because that's where we're coming up with our creative ideas. That's where we're doing our writing, and that's where we're doing our work. So number 1 would be your place to pray, meditate. That has to be absolutely clean. But then number 2 is your workspace. Number 3, that's also very critically important, is your bed. That has to be absolutely clean and free of any distracting or noisy or upsetting vibration, because your sleep is incredibly important. And I've talked about this in shorts about why it's so important for your health. So if there's a lot of mess going on there, or you're trying to do too much, like brain activity, too close to your bed, like for example, your spiritual practice, you may not want to do it too close to your bed. I find that from experience, because maybe the vibration of it is too, I don't want to say uplifting because that's good for sleep, but like it's too energizing. Right? That's the right word. Too energizing and keeping you awake when your spiritual practice is too close to your bed. So I find keeping it a little bit away from the bed, like just even in the next room, is very helpful. Sometimes I do things spiritually outside. If you have the privacy to do that, that's awesome. If you don't, your neighbors are gonna come talk to you. Like maybe they have nice neighbors, but maybe you need to do it somewhere else. So the first tip is to just make sure your space is organized for your spiritual practice, your work, and your sleep. Those are very important. And then your kitchen would be the next one that's really big, where you keep it neat and clean and tidy for all of the healthy foods that you want to prepare for yourself. Number 2 on the listicle of things that stop you dead in your tracks from creating your dream life is too much TV. And this could be YouTube, this could be Netflix, this could be cable TV, but you have too much noise going on. And in particular, not all TV is bad. Some inspirational, uplifting TV could be helpful and could feed into your creative practice. But if you're watching a lot of negative stuff like the news, that absolutely messes up your creative practice. Of course, knowing a little bit about the news can be helpful when you have to vote or participate in the world somehow. But too much negativity, too much news is very, very bad for your creative subconscious. It's going to feed negativity in there, and then when it comes time for you to confidently create, you're not going to be able to create because you're too concerned about all of the terrible things that are going on in the world. And the list is endless, and it seems to always be getting worse. So I'm not saying you can't care or pay attention to that. If there's something constructive you can do about the state of the world, absolutely do it whenever you can. But having said that, there's just so much going on in the world that's negative, and there's only so much that each one of us can do as a single human being. We can't take it all on, and so it's not good for our unconscious to take it all on, because it will just stop us from doing the things that we can do, because we're so upset and inundated by all the things that we can't do or can't control, right? So it's good to block that stuff out. Don't pay too much attention to it. Also, don't watch too much artificial dramas, artificial blood and gore, because that also feeds negativity into the mind. Even though it's fake, it still registers in our mind as being something we're fearful of potentially. I mean, that's why we get entertainment out of it. So be careful about consuming too much of that content either. Okay, if you're out with your friends and you do it once in a while for fun, that's maybe okay, but beware of doing that constantly. It's not good for your creative unconscious. My next piece of advice would be cautious about what you consume on social media and potentially video games as well. So anything that's taking up a lot of your time, that's very violent, or it's creating jealousy because you see somebody else's perfect life on Instagram and your life isn't like that, or you're watching the big influencer who has millions of followers. And I do this. There are certain influencers I really admire and I like to learn from them and see their work, but sometimes you have to turn it off because it's a bit too much, and then you compare yourself to them and it's not realistic, it's just unproductive, and at some point it becomes kind of a block in your unconscious from creating, because you feel like your creations are not going to be the same, or they're not going to match another person's creations. So it's better to just let that go. Yes, to some extent, when you can take inspiration from others, then do that, but don't get too lost in consuming too much of other people's contents and start comparing yourself. The next step, the next block that stops you from creating your dreams and your goals, are the negative relationships in your life. So who in your life needs to go? Who is taking up your time and giving you a crisis and giving you problems and not showing any commitment to resolving them, right? If people are not going to follow through on your advice, they ask for it and then they don't like the answers they give and they don't want to follow through on it, then I'm not saying you can't see that friend again, but be committed to not talking about that problem again until they've done something to resolve it. You can just say, I don't want to talk about that. We've talked about it and you know my opinion on it, and if you don't agree, that's fine, but then I don't want to keep talking or rehashing about it, right? It's better to not go there, and then your friendship will probably be better off too as a result of having boundaries there. So boundaries, very, very important. Make sure your friends are not encouraging you to do things that aren't good for you. Like if your friends are really encouraging you to go out to the bar, and as a woman, this is tricky when I'm getting to know new men, because a lot of them want to go out to the bar, and I don't want to judge or tell them that they're wrong or be like a nag, but I have to put in a really firm boundary that that's not for me, that I drink coffee. And even coffee, some people don't do that, but I'll drink coffee, right? So that's what I drink, and that's my way of keeping out the negative influence from my life and keeping my body healthy. And that's why I am doing as well as I am in terms of my health. And the proof is there in how I got over GBS and Guillain-Barré syndrome, by the way. So anyway, I digress. Now we're going to get to point number 5. This is the last piece about why people don't succeed in their dream life. And it's because they're not eating the right foods that are supportive to them. They're eating a lot of junk food, they're eating ice cream or chips, and they're not eating it mindfully. If you have treat food mindfully with other friends when you're celebrating, you don't have to be that uptight and be the person who doesn't want to eat anything if you're not comfortable with that. But be disciplined in your own personal life. Have very strict rules for yourself. I would say when you're by yourself and you're eating, eat healthy. And then if you want to indulge when you're with friends and family with something, then that might be the time to indulge. But you may even want to take it further depending on who you are and what your discipline is like with food. Some spiritual gurus don't eat any sugar, for example, or they never touch alcohol again, or they never touch meat again, or some of them don't touch dairy or gluten. Do what resonates for you. Like for me, it's vegetarianism, but maybe for you, it's no gluten is the most important thing. Pick what's right for your body and do what's right for your body and commit to it. Definitely commit to it when you're by yourself. That's the most important time when you need to have a healthy relationship with your food. And then if things are a little different when you're around other people, that's up to you. Like you can decide how firmly you want to set those boundaries for yourself. If you're going to be very, very strict and never eat certain kinds of foods again, even in the presence of others, or if you're more going to be strict by yourself. I recommend being strict by yourself first, and trying things out and following rules and see how it works for you in your private life and how you can cook and prepare certain foods. And then if it works, then that's something you can commit outwardly as well with your friends and family. So these are the 5 reasons people fail in creating their dream life. I also think that 5.5 bonus tip that I touched on in my first tip when I was talking about home organization is your sleep. That is a very big, important key to success, is getting good night's sleep. If you sacrifice sleep too much, too often, I know some entrepreneurs do that and they do build a business short term doing that. Having said that, long term, at some point you got to get back into sleeping properly, because that's going to really restore your health. And if you cut sleep through your whole life too frequently, you're probably going to end up with some sort of chronic health issue at some point in your later life. I hope you enjoyed my video on how we accidentally destroy our dream life by feeding our imagination and our bodies with things that aren't good for us. When we get those obstacles out of the way, we've got a much better chance of actually achieving the things that we want to achieve in our life, because our unconscious and our body is supporting us and our home environment is supporting us and whatever dreams that we're trying to create, whether that's weight loss or career or a writing project or whatever it is we want to create. We have to make sure we've got the support in place to create the things that we want to create in life. Otherwise, we're going to sabotage ourselves. And there are millions of ways that people do that, So I hope you enjoyed my tips today on these are the things to get rid of in order to create your dream life. Of course, there's more to creating your dream life than that, but if you get rid of those 5 things, if you've got a good discipline and you've got a good mindset towards working towards the things that you want to achieve, you'll probably have a good shot at achieving them.